day after the drawer construction video, and the drawer fits perfectly inside the space that we had created last time. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make the face plate for the drawer out of pine, and then we're going to drill the mounting holes and the hole for the drawer knob today. The other thing we're going to try to do is we're going to try to make the floating runners. Now, normally you make floating runners out of a hardwood, like beech, oak, cherry. The tougher the wood, the better the runner. But the one thing that's a problem with a hardwood runner in older furniture I've noticed is that they do expand and contract because, again, wood expands and contracts based off the season. So instead, I'm going to go with a more modern solution. I'm going to try to use a material called high density polyethylene, or HDPE. What's nice about this material is it's pretty friction free. So again, it allows things to glide really nice on it. And the other nice part is, whatever size I cut it to, it'll stay that size. It won't expand as much as wood will. So I think this will probably be the prime material we want to use for the drawer glide. So just to recap, we're going to do the drawer face, the drawer mounting screws and countersinking, and drawer knob and runners today. So let's get to work. So the first part we're going to do is we're going to do the drawer face. We want at least a 1/4 inch overhang for the drawer face. So we're looking at something like 12, let's see, your initial one is 12 and 3/16. We need be 12 and 11/16. So that would give me a 1/4 inch overhang on either side, and that's actually perfect. So we're going to take the leftover pine board that we had from the beginning of the project, and we're going to rip it to 3 and 15/16, and then cross cut it to 12 and 11/16. So with that said, let's get to it. Now I'm going to set the distance from the inside of the blade to the fence to be a 1/16 greater than my final measurement. The reason being is I'm going to use my jointer to joint the piece afterwards, so I can make sure that the edge is both clean and perfectly parallel. I had jointed the larger piece already, so all I'm doing is I'm ripping it down to its rough width plus a 1/16. So if I was to add a 16 to 3 and 15/16, I'm looking at 4 inches exactly. Push stick. Let's get ripping. Now, I'm choosing this spot here for the drawer face because it just has the better looking piece. I'm going to try to avoid all the other defects on the board by taking my part from this zone here. If I look on the other side, actually right here is a really nice board for a drawer face. So let's get ripping. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my origin, because right here there's a knot I want to cut off and just get rid of it entirely. And actually, it's a little bigger than I thought, so I'm going to mark it actually on this side and cut it completely out of the board. So I want to get rid of this part here. So now that's my origin. I'm going to measure 12 and 11/16 this way now. So 12 and a half is 8/16, so 8, 9, 10, 11. Make a mark. Take my combination square, slide it up, mark it across, and we'll make that cut. So I remarked it again because I noticed on the edge this brown stuff here is called the pith, and it's really soft material, and I don't want that any part of my drawer. So I tried to line this up perfectly in the center so that I wouldn't have to contend with that material. So now let's take this to the chop saw. Now we're going to cross cut it to its final length. So I'm going to... Now you might be wondering, why did I put this piece of wood underneath my drawer front? Is I noticed after the first cut that the blade wasn't cutting all the way through, and I think the drawer face was bigger than my maximum cutting width. So to increase that, I put it underneath a board, raise it up, and it increases my cutting width. And that's because, again, the diameter of a circle only gets bigger as you get closer to the center point of the circle. So when I raise this up, I increase the cutting capacity of my piece. And it works great for smaller parts. So, there's our drawer face. So now I gotta find the center point on my drawer face for the knob. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bust out my TI-84, and we're gonna actually do the math. So with that said, let's cut closer to the calculator. So we know that the length is 12 and 11/16, so I'm going to take 11 divided by 16, get a decimal, so 0.6875, and then take 12.6875 divide by 2, I get 6.34375. Right? I take 0.34375, math, frac, and I get 11/32. So it's 6 and 11/32 for the center point in the length department. Now the width department, it's going to be 3, so it'd be 3 and 15/16. So 15 over 16 equals 0.9375. So 3.9375 divided by 2 equals 1.96875, which is probably a 32nd. So let's do 0.96875. Math, frac, 31/32. So the measurements are, so let's point this out. So it's going to be 1 and 31/32 in width, and then we go up, and then 6 and 11/32 in length. So that's our center point. So let's bust out our layout ruler. So to lay out those numbers, 6 and 11/32 and 1 and 31/32, tape measure is out of the picture, so we can't use that. Normally we would just use a combination square, but for today, I am actually going to use my intercut rulers. And what's nice about this is each of these measurements has a hole marked at that precise position that I can mark that measurement. Now, problem is I can't use a standard pencil because it doesn't fit in that gap. So I'm either going to use a metal scribe or mechanical pencil. But I'm going to use a mechanical pencil for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to 6 and 11/32. So this top scale up here is in 30 seconds. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So 11/32 is this mark here. And I'm going to come down here to 11/32 and make a mark. Slide up a little bit. Right. So there's my reference line. Now I'm going to come down this direction. So let me just flip this around. I'm going to come down, and I'm going to zoom in for this one. I'm going to come down, try to line that measurement up with 1 inch. So zoom in. So 1 inch and 31/32. And there is my exact center point as I calculated. I'm also going to make an indent with this scribe exactly on that center point, so that when I go drill it, it won't skirt off the surface. So that's done. So now I need to do the same process here. I need to find my center line, so that I can match up the hole for the drawer knob. Now, I want a 1/16 of an inch gap here. So what I am going to do is I'm not going to change the center point in this direction. So in length, but in width, I am going to move it down a 1/16, so that, up a 1/16, so that when the drawer face is on top, there's this small little gap here on the top of the drawer. So what I'm saying is, when I put this over the drawer, I'll have a nice little gap on the top to separate between the two. So let's find out that measurement. So this is 3 7/8. So let's calculate that number. So the center point coming up this way comes out to be 1 15/16, because this is 3 7/8. So if I want to come up, so if I'm coming up 1 15/16, and I need to come up an extra 1/16, it's going to be 2 inches exactly. So I'm going to bring my Inca ruler right over top, line it up with the 2 inch mark. Now the reason why I'm marking longer than I want is I actually want my alignment holes to pull the drawer face on to be on the same plane. So my drawer knob hole will be here, and then over here from the center point. So whenever I find that center point, I'm going to come, I'd say about 3 inches and 3 inches, so that I can screw from the inside to pull my faceplate down. So I have that alignment. Now I got to figure out what the center line is for the length. So let's measure that. So that's about, say, 12 1/16. So half of that is, that's a 6 1/32. So find that center line, 6 6 1/32. So it doesn't hurt to double check your math. So 6 1/32 is halfway of that. If I were to hold this in alignment, it's exactly the same overhang. But again, I'm going to double check before I commit. So 12 1/16 is 6.03125, which is 6 1/32. So that is exactly my center. So now I'm going to take my combination square and I'm going to lay out my drawer holes. So if that's my center point, so that's my 0 0, I'm going to come 3 inches back from that. So 1 2 3. Make a mark. That is 1. Actually, you know what? It would look better if we did 4 inches. So let's do 1 2 3 4. 4 inches on that center mark. Alright, turn it around. Line her up. So from 0 0, 1 2 3 4. Okay. So the good thing about this face is that even though I made a mistake in where I indented, it's going to be covered by the faceplate anyways. So 1 2 3 holes. We got to go drill at the drill press. So let's do that. So what I have done is I've taken the drawer knob and had matched the drill bit to the shank of the screw. So screws have two parts. They have the shank, which is the metal part that makes up the screw, and then the thread, which is what screws into the hole. I measured it so it's smaller than the thread, so that when I go to thread in my screw, it'll actually cut threads into the wood and lock itself in place, giving it a stronger connection with the drawer. So I don't have to worry about the drawer not walking out on me. All right. So I have it lined up. Just want to check, make sure. One more time, perfect alignment. And I'm just going to slowly work my way through that. Now I'm going to clean it up with a countersink real quick. And I'm doing this to both sides so that I don't have any leftover wood. Bits to mess with the drawer itself. Now, to be safe, to do the other holes, I'm actually going to not change the drill bit. The reason being is I'm not using this material, so the drawer front, as my securing material. I'm using the drawer face. So that is actually not going to get pilot holed. These two aren't. But what I am going to do more though on this one is I'm going to countersink it so that the screws, when I go to screw it together, are flush to the inside. And flush, again, the term is flat. So when someone says flush, is there's no distinguishable difference between those two parts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to loosen this table and then slide it over so that I can line up with these holes. So let's do it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 3 screws. I'm going to have them on hand as I'm drilling this in. I want to make sure that the surface of the screw goes below the surface of the material. So I'm just going to start the hole and then test. So it's just barely above, a little bit more. Perfect. That one's done. I'm going to do the same to the other side. Perfect. Those are done. Now for this one. Perfect fit. Last thing I need to do here is I need to drill the hole for the knob in the front. So I'm going to line this up. And drill all the way through. So we're all set. Now we can start putting the drawer together. So there we go. We got a nice dry fit. Fits nice together. The only downside is that the drawer knob screw is too short. So what we're going to do is we're just going to finish mounting the drawer from the inside. So we'll back this out, put a little bit of glue on here, glue and screw, and squeeze down any gaps we notice. And then we'll just get a bigger knob screw to go all the way through. So right now we're just going to use that screw hole, the drawer screw, to hold this in place so that when we go to put it back together, when we go to screw these in, it won't move. So this is perfectly centered, so let's get to it. Make sure that we're right face is facing up. And send our alignment screw through. That'll hold it in place. Now we'll use that to line up the other two. And one thing I'm going to do real quick, I'm actually going to use some clamps just to help me out a little bit, so I don't have to worry about the screws pushing off the piece and creating a larger gap. So that's the drawer construction for the faceplate. We're actually going to pause for today. I found out that I don't have the right hardware for screwing on the plastic for our runners, so I need to go out to the hardware to do that. So I find that is a good stopping point for today. So we got the drawer done. Next time we're going to sand the front, start putting finish on the front and the whole drawer, and assemble the runners. So with that said, I hope everyone's staying safe, and I hope everyone has a great week. So see you guys around. Bye.